The Battlestar Galactica moved slowly through deep space, its great body marked by burns, cracks, and old scars. The stars around it were quiet and cold, but inside the ship, life continued with tired steps and heavy hearts. Humans filled the halls, some injured, some grieving, all carrying memories of battles already lost. They were not searching for glory. They were searching for safety. Captain Daniel Reed stood on the command deck, his hands resting calmly behind his back. He was not a loud man. He did not shout orders or show fear on his face. His calm strength gave the crew something solid to hold on to. When alarms rang and lights flickered, people looked to him. When silence fell after attacks, they waited for his voice. He spoke clearly, slowly, and with care, reminding them that they were still alive, still together. The alien fleet followed them like a shadow. The aliens had watched humans for a long time. They believed humans were weak creatures, driven by fear and emotion. In the alien mind, loss led to panic and panic led to collapse. The aliens believed it was only a matter of time before the humans broke apart on their own. Their early attacks were meant to test this belief, not to destroy completely. The first strikes came without warning. Bright energy tore through the darkness and slammed into escort ships around the Galactica. Metal screamed. Fire spread through narrow corridors. One ship vanished in a flash of light, leaving nothing behind. On the Galactica, the impact shook the walls and threw people to the floor. Fear rushed through the ship like a sudden storm. Yet no one ran. Crew members helped each other up. Medics rushed toward the wounded instead of away from danger. Engineers sealed broken sections while breathing smoke and heat. Parents held their children close in shelters, whispering steady words even while their own hands shook. Fear was there, clear and sharp, but it did not rule them. The aliens attacked again hours later, striking another ship, then pulling back. They expected chaos. They expected desperate signals, arguments, and collapse. Instead, they saw the human fleet tighten its formation. Smaller ships moved closer to the Galactica for protection. Communication lines stayed open. Human voices remained calm, sharing information and support. Captain Reed watched the stars as reports came in. Damage was heavy, but the fleet still moved. He gave short orders, trusting his crew to do their jobs. He did not promise victory. He promised effort. He promised that as long as one ship remained, they would keep going. In the lower levels of the Galactica, lights dimmed as power was saved. The halls grew quiet. People spoke softly. Some cried in corners, unseen. Others sat together in silence, simply sharing space. Even without words, they felt less alone. Darkness filled the ship, but it did not break the human bond. The aliens studied this behavior with growing confusion. Their records showed that most species broke after such losses. Cooperation usually failed. Trust vanished. Yet the humans stayed united. They mourned together. They repaired together. They endured together. Another attack came, smaller but precise. A weapon struck near the engines, shaking the ship once more. Systems failed. For a moment, the Galactica drifted. In that moment, fear reached its peak. But then backup systems came online. Engineers, exhausted and burned, brought power back piece by piece. Cheers echoed through the halls, weak but real. Captain Reed spoke to the fleet. His message was simple. He honored the lost. He thanked the living. He reminded them that fear was natural, but giving up was a choice. His words spread through every ship, carried by speakers and screens. People listened, some with tears, some with clenched fists. The aliens watched again and adjusted their plans. They increased pressure, hoping to wear humans down slowly. They believed time was on their side. They did not understand that time had already taught humans how to survive loss. As the fleet moved deeper into unknown space, the Galactica remained at its center, scarred but steady. Humans moved forward not because they felt strong but because they refused to stop. In the silence between stars, with enemies close and hope thin, they stayed together. And that, more than weapons or armor, became their quiet strength. The alien attacks changed after the first battles. They no longer focused on destroying ships alone. They aimed at something deeper. They attacked power lines, supply ships, and communication signals. They wanted humans to feel hopeless. They wanted them tired, hungry, and afraid. In the cold space around the fleet, the pressure never stopped. Inside the Battlestar Galactica, engineer Thomas Blake had not slept well in days. His eyes were red and his hands shook as he worked, but he did not slow down. He moved from one broken system to another, crawling through tight spaces filled with wires and heat. Every alarm felt closer than the last. Every repair felt like buying a little more time. Thomas was not alone. Other engineers worked beside him, passing tools, holding lights, and checking readings. When one collapsed from exhaustion, another took their place. No one complained. They all knew what failure would mean. The Galactica was not just a ship. It was home. Pilot Emily Carter felt the same weight in the cockpit. She flew patrol after patrol, guiding damaged fighters back to safety. Her voice stayed calm over the radio, even when her body ached and her head burned from lack of rest. She spoke clearly to younger pilots, helping them breathe and focus. When her ship landed, she helped ground crews repair it instead of walking away. Supplies began to run low. Food rations were cut smaller. Water was carefully measured. Lights stayed dim to save power. The air felt heavy not just from heat and smoke but from tired bodies and tired minds. Children asked quiet questions their parents could not always answer. Yet something strange happened. People began to share more. A man gave half his food to a stranger who looked weaker than him. A woman taught basic repair skills to anyone willing to learn, even children. Pilots shared flight tips during short breaks, sitting on the floor instead of resting alone. Medics checked on crew members who were not injured, just worn down. Thomas Blake noticed it during a short pause in the engine room. Someone had placed a small container of food beside his tools without a word. He ate slowly, knowing it came from someone else's portion. Later he fixed a power relay faster than expected. That small meal made a difference. Emily Carter saw it in the hangar. A young pilot froze before a mission, fear clear on his face. Instead of pushing him aside, another pilot sat with him, speaking softly, sharing a story of fear and survival. The young pilot flew that mission and returned safely. The aliens watched all of this. Their sensors picked up changes in human behavior. Less panic. More coordination. Even as ships were damaged and supplies faded, human actions did not turn inward. They turned outward. Humans supported one another instead of competing for survival. This confused the alien commanders. Their records showed that hope was fragile. Hunger and fear usually destroyed unity. Yet the humans used hardship as a reason to stand closer together. They did not deny their fear. They faced it as a group. Another attack hit the fleet, more precise than before. A supply ship was lost. The shock passed through the Galactica like a cold wave. For a moment, silence filled the halls. Then voices rose again. Plans were made. Rations were adjusted. People accepted smaller portions without argument. Captain Daniel Reed watched these changes carefully. He did not order people to share or support each other. He simply allowed it to happen. He trusted his crew. When he spoke honestly. He admitted the danger. He admitted the losses. He thanked them for staying strong not as soldiers but as people. Thomas Blake finally slept for 2 hours straight, leaning against a warm wall in the engine room. When he woke he felt guilt but also strength. He returned to work with clearer focus. Emily Carter flew again, her hands steady despite the pain in her shoulders. Exhaustion spread but it did not win. The aliens increased their pressure, expecting a breaking point. They attacked in short bursts, then waited, watching for signs of collapse. They saw none. They saw tired humans still helping the wounded. They saw crews cheering when a system came back online. They saw children drawing pictures of ships and stars, taping them to metal walls. The idea of hope confused the alien mind. Hope was not logical. It did not follow numbers or predictions. Yet it was there, alive inside the human fleet. As the Galactica moved forward through darkness, its engines humming weakly but steadily, the humans inside carried more than weapons and tools. They carried shared courage. The aliens could damage ships. They could starve supplies. But they could not understand why humans still reached for one another. And because they could not understand it, they could not destroy it. The battle came without warning, harder than any before. Alien weapons cut through space with cold precision, striking several human ships at once. Explosions lit the darkness like sudden stars. One ship broke apart in seconds. Another drifted, burning before going silent. The human fleet lost more in minutes than it had in days. Inside the Battlestar Galactica, alarms screamed. The floor shook. People grabbed walls and railings as the ship turned sharply to avoid incoming fire. Screens filled with red warnings. Names of ships disappeared from the display one by one. Then the alarms faded. Silence followed, heavy and painful. Grief filled the ship. People stared at screens, hoping names would return. Some whispered prayers. Others closed their eyes, already knowing the truth. Friends were gone. Families were broken. The loss pressed down on every breath. But despair did not come. Officer Michael Hayes moved through the command deck with quick, steady steps. His face was pale, but his eyes were focused. He did not stop to grieve yet. There would be time later. Right now there were survivors. He organized rescue teams within seconds. Small ships were launched into dangerous space, flying close to debris and unstable wrecks. Michael volunteered for the first mission. He did not wait for orders. He believed that if even one person could be saved, the risk was worth it. The rescue ship shook as it moved through broken metal and drifting fire. Smoke filled the cockpit. Warning lights flashed. Michael guided the ship carefully, his hands steady on the controls. He spoke calmly to the crew even when his own heart raced. They found survivors trapped inside a shattered ship. The hull was torn open. Power was failing. Oxygen was low. Michael and his team entered through a narrow gap, pulling people out one by one. Some were injured. Some were silent in shock. Each life mattered. As they returned to the Galactica, alien ships moved closer. They could have attacked the rescue teams. Instead they watched. The aliens expected panic by now. They expected humans to argue, to abandon the weak, to save only themselves. They had planned for chaos. What they saw instead made no sense. More rescue ships launched. Despite the danger, humans went back again and again. Pilots flew damaged craft. Medics treated wounds in small shuttles. Engineers repaired engines mid-flight. No one asked who deserved saving. They only asked where help was needed. Michael Hayes led 3 rescue runs before his ship was hit. A blast tore through the side, throwing him against the wall. Pain shot through his arm, but he stayed conscious. He sealed the breach, guided the ship back, and delivered the survivors. Only then did he allow himself to sit down. On the Galactica, the rescued were brought into open halls. There were no empty rooms left. People gave up beds and blankets. Strangers held strangers. Tears flowed freely, but so did comfort. Names of the lost were spoken softly, not forgotten. The fleet held a short moment of silence. No long speeches. No grand words. Just quiet respect. The stars outside the windows seemed distant and cold, but inside, something warm remained. The aliens studied this behavior closely. Their models showed that grief should weaken a species. Loss should break trust and order. Yet humans used grief as a reason to protect one another more fiercely. Another small attack came, testing human response. The humans did not rush or panic. Weapons were activated. Shields were raised. Orders were followed smoothly. Hands moved with purpose, not anger. Michael Hayes returned to duty with his arm bandaged. He worked without complaint. When asked why he kept going, he simply said that stopping would mean letting the loss win. Across the ship, others felt the same. Children drew symbols for the fallen. Crew members shared stories of those lost, keeping their memory alive. Laughter even returned in small moments, quiet and gentle, like a breath after crying. The aliens pulled back slightly, uncertain. They had destroyed ships. They had taken lives. Yet the human fleet still moved forward, slower but united. Their grief was real, deep, and painful. But it did not turn into despair. In the dark space between stars, humans proved something the aliens could not understand. Loss could hurt them deeply, but it could not make them stop. With steady hands and quiet resolve, they continued on. Time passed, measured not in days but in attacks survived. The human fleet no longer moved blindly through space. Pain had taught them to watch more closely. Every strike, every loss, every narrow escape became a lesson. Technician Laura Bennett spent most of her time in a small control room filled with screens and quiet humming machines. She was not a soldier. She did not fire weapons or fly ships. She watched numbers, signals, and strange patterns that others ignored. While many slept, she stayed awake, replaying recordings of alien attacks again and again. At first it all looked random. Different angles, different weapons, different timing. But Laura kept looking. She slowed the data. She compared moments just before each strike. Small details began to repeat. A shift in energy levels. A pause in alien movement. A slight change in signal noise. Her heart beat faster as she realized it. The alien attacks were not chaos. They followed rules. Laura shared her findings with Captain Daniel Reed. She expected doubt or delay. Instead, he listened carefully. He asked simple questions and let her explain without interruption. When she finished, he nodded once and thanked her. That night, the fleet changed course slightly. Shields were raised earlier than usual. Smaller ships moved into new positions. Power was shifted to areas Laura had marked as likely targets. The next alien attack came. Energy blasts struck where the fleet had been before, not where it was now. Human ships avoided the worst of the damage. Some still took hits, but fewer lives were lost. For the first time in a long while, the humans felt something new. Control. Laura continued her work. Each attack gave her more data. Each escape sharpened her predictions. She worked with engineers and pilots, explaining patterns in simple terms. No one treated her like she was unimportant. Her knowledge became part of the fleet's survival. Captain Reed adjusted tactics slowly. He did not rush. He knew humans were still weaker in raw power. But strength was not the only weapon. Timing, movement, and understanding mattered. Small human ships began to act as decoys, drawing alien fire away from the Galactica. Pilots learned when to pull back and when to push forward. Engineers altered engine signals to confuse alien sensors. Nothing was perfect, but it was enough. The aliens noticed the change. Their attacks became less effective. Their weapons hit empty space more often. Human ships escaped traps that should have closed around them. The alien commanders reviewed the data again and again, searching for errors. There were none. The humans were learning. This realization caused something new among the alien command. Hesitation. Their strategy had always depended on fear and pressure. They expected pain to weaken enemies. Humans did not react that way. Pain made them observe, adapt, and cooperate. Every loss sharpened their response instead of dulling it. Another attack came, stronger than the last. The aliens pushed harder, hoping to crush this growing resistance. But the humans were ready. Shields rose in time. Ships scattered in practiced patterns. Damage was taken, but the fleet held. Laura Bennett watched the battle unfold on her screens. Her hands trembled, but her voice stayed steady as she guided decisions. When a prediction proved correct, a quiet smile crossed her face. It was not pride. It was relief. Captain Reed stood on the command deck, watching his crew move with calm focus. He saw fear, yes, but also trust. People trusted each other. They trusted the plan. They trusted that learning mattered. After the attack, the fleet regrouped. Repairs began. Wounded were treated. Laura sat down for the first time in hours, exhaustion finally reaching her. Someone placed a cup of warm drink beside her without speaking. She nodded in thanks. The aliens pulled back slightly, just for a moment. They needed to think. In their long history, few enemies had behaved this way. Most species broke or fled. Humans endured and adapted. The alien command reviewed reports that showed something unsettling. Human responses were improving faster than expected. Their survival rate was rising. For the first time, the alien leaders questioned their assumptions. They watched the Battlestar Galactica move through space, scarred but steady. They saw damaged ships still protecting one another. They saw a fleet that should have been broken, yet was learning with every strike. Inside the Galactica, Captain Reed addressed his crew briefly. He did not speak of victory. He spoke of progress. He reminded them that every lesson mattered. Every life mattered. Every moment of survival was proof that they were not finished. Laura returned to her screens, already searching for the next pattern. She knew more attacks would come. She knew more pain waited ahead. But she also knew something important now. Humans did not need to be stronger than their enemy. They only needed to learn faster. As the stars drifted past and the alien fleet hesitated in the distance, one truth became clear. The humans were no longer just surviving. They were adapting. And that realization unsettled the aliens more than any weapon ever could. The final days of the chase felt different. The alien fleet no longer attacked with the same force or confidence. Their ships stayed at a distance, watching instead of striking. Sensors showed strange movement patterns, pauses where there should have been pressure. The humans noticed it quickly, but they did not celebrate. They stayed careful. Inside the Battlestar Galactica, the crew moved with quiet focus. Everyone felt the change in the air. Fear was still there, but it was no longer sharp. It had become something steady, something familiar. People worked, ate, rested, and repaired without needing to be told. Survival had become routine. Captain Daniel Reed stood on the command deck, studying the distant stars and the fading signals of the alien fleet. He did not smile. He had seen too much to trust sudden calm. Still, something told him this moment mattered. Reports came in slowly. Alien ships were pulling back. One by one, their signals weakened. Long-range scans confirmed it. The fleet that had hunted the humans for so long was retreating. No cheers filled the Galactica. Instead, there was silence. People looked at screens, then at each other, unsure how to react. Some sat down, suddenly exhausted. Others closed their eyes, holding back tears. A few laughed softly, not from joy but from release. The aliens withdrew because they could not understand what they were facing. They had damaged ships, killed many, and pushed humans to the edge again and again. Yet the humans had not broken. They had adapted, supported one another, and continued forward. Every attack had cost the aliens more time and effort than expected. In the alien command, the conclusion was clear. Humans were not worth the cost. They did not collapse. They endured. On the Galactica, rescue teams brought in the last surviving ships. Some arrived barely holding together. Others carried wounded and frightened people who had believed they would never see safety again. The hangars filled with tired faces and quiet voices. Medics worked without stopping. Engineers patched final wounds in the ship's body. Families were reunited. Names of the lost were spoken again gently, so they would not fade into silence. Captain Reed addressed the fleet one final time before the jump. His voice was calm, steady, and honest. He did not call it a victory. He said they had survived. He thanked the pilots who flew through fire, the engineers who worked without rest, the medics who saved lives with shaking hands, and the civilians who endured fear without losing kindness. He honored the dead, reminding everyone that survival carried responsibility. When the Battlestar Galactica prepared to jump, people gathered near windows and screens. The stars stretched and bent. The damaged hull creaked softly, like a tired body preparing to move one last time. As the jump began, the alien fleet vanished behind them. In the quiet that followed, something changed inside the ship. The tension slowly drained away. People sat together, leaning against walls, holding hands, or simply breathing. The journey was not over, but the chase had ended. Children slept for the first time without waking to alarms. Crew members shared warm drinks made from limited supplies. Laughter returned, quiet and uncertain, but real. Captain Reed left the command deck and walked through the halls. He saw scars on the walls and on faces. He saw strength in tired eyes. He nodded to crew members who nodded back, not as soldiers but as equals. The Galactica moved onward, carrying its survivors into unknown space. They did not know what waited ahead. Safety was not guaranteed. Peace was not promised. But something else was certain. Their spirit remained unbroken. The aliens would remember this encounter, even if they could not understand it. They would remember a species that did not give up when logic said it should. A species that turned pain into learning and fear into unity. Far behind the Galactica, in the empty space where the battle had ended, no signal remained. Only drifting debris and silence. Ahead, stars waited. The humans did not send messages of triumph into the void. They sent no warnings or threats. Their message was simpler, carried not by words but by survival itself. Humans endure. No matter the odds.